Hi everybody, welcome back to ECE 107. We're now in week 2. I hope you had a fabulous week 1. We're going to go over chapter 6 here for a moment. We're going to be speaking about accountability, standards, and a little bit about assessment. This should help you with your week's assignments coming ahead. First of all, a little bit about the difference between the three terms. Accountability refers to being answerable to those who provide funds and ensuring that goals are accomplished. This might be your director, your board of directors, or we might even include parents in this because we want to be accountable to them as well. Sort of proving what we're doing in the classroom. Learning standards include our content and the skills to be learned, and our performance, which are basically the levels measured through assessment or testing. Then lastly, assessment is promoting development, identifying potential problems or problems, monitoring, evaluating our programs, and accountability for everyone. So it's important that you know the difference between these three terms. Next, we have a little bit about observations, and I want you to pay particular attention to this slide. You'll be using this for an assignment this week. We're looking at the 5 basic types of observations that you might be using in the classroom. And it's important that when we talk about our classroom, we don't just focus on the curriculum that we're using or how we're presenting a lesson, how we're interacting with the children. Observation is also a very important part of the puzzle. So, number 1 is an anecdotal record. And this is basically, it's the most frequently used, and it's what we call a word picture of the event or of the behavior. And generally an anecdotal record is recorded as the behavior is happening or shortly after so that it's fresh on our mind. And we're writing out in sentences or paragraphs specifically what occurred. Secondly, a running record is everything that happens during a specific time period. So an example might be, say we have a biting issue with a child and it's happening almost every day around, let's say 2 or 3 o'clock. So we may choose this running record time to write down everything that happens during this specific time period to give us some clues as to what's causing this behavior. It's very detailed though. Number 3 is the ABC analysis. It's basically 3 columns: antecedent, behavior, and consequences. So what an ABC analysis can do, it can tell us first of all what's leading up to the behavior. So we may be making note, for instance, on the biting instance, of what's happening with the child or those around them, or what activity is going on, the antecedent event. Then we're writing down the behavior itself, how it happens. And then lastly, we're writing down also the consequences of the behavior. And you know, an ABC analysis is very easy to do on someone else, maybe another teacher. Harder to do on ourselves because we tend to filter some things out. So it would be great to bring in an outside person to do your ABC analysis of the event. So we're recording the 3 separate things though. Next, a time sampling is counting how often the behavior occurs. So time sampling, I want you to just think of a basic tally mark sheet as something we could use on this. So maybe we have a tally mark sheet for a day or for the week of this child that's having the biting issue, and we're keeping track of how often it's happening so that we can count how often this behavior occurs. And then number 5, our last one, is our event sampling. So a descriptive description each time the behavior occurs, and the ABC tool is great for this. An event sampling can take up quite a bit of your time. So again, this is something that you might want to have someone coming in from outside the classroom to help you with this. Maybe another teacher, a floater, a teacher assistant that could help you take this event sampling while you're also conducting the normal things through the course of a day. So I want you to be familiar with these: anecdotal record, running record, ABC analysis, time sampling, and event sampling. Be sure and read through this section in your e-textbook. A little bit about observations. Some characteristics of a good observation are it's very objective, it adequately describes the occurrence, and it also describes nonverbal cues. So basically, when you're doing an observation, and in this picture, you see a couple teachers that are actually in an observation room. You've got a two-way mirror so that we can't see the children can't see that you're recording them, because sometimes that can affect their behavior as well. And they are writing down everything that's happening. So if you were reading this description, this observation, you should be able to form a mental picture of what's going on in that classroom, including the time of day, the sun coming in, the how the classroom is set up. So you want as much detail as possible to record a good observation to get an idea of what needs to happen. A little bit more, we've got teacher designed instruments as well that we might use in the classroom. We might use a simple checklist or rating scale. And in our last class, you had to find a couple of these. So checklist for specific age groups are online, tons of them. Rating scales as well, or you may create your own. Then we also have standardized tests. So these are tests that have been created by companies. They've been tested. The test has been tested, if that makes any sense. They might include screening test, diagnostic test, developmental test, intelligent test, and readiness test. Now, some of those can be administered by the classroom teacher. Some of these will require maybe a counselor or testing specialist to come to your classroom to administer specifically to that child. I like this quote from William Osler: observe, record, tabulate, communicate. Use your 5 senses. Learn to see, learn to hear, learn to feel, learn to smell, and know that by practice alone, you can become an expert. So when you're first doing these observations, you may not include enough detail. You may not have sat there for the appropriate amount of time, but with practice, your observations will get better and better, just like anything. Here's an example of methods for evaluating and assessing children. So with this assessment, you'll notice that in the middle, we have information about the child. That's where we begin, is with the basic information. We're going to include, when we're evaluating this child, we're going to include observations. We may include a developmental assessment. We may include the child's work sample. So for instance, maybe we're having problems with the child drawing letters correctly, and you know that there's just something that's not right there. We might include work samples that show this difficulty. And we might also include screening test results that have been administered to this child. So there's a world of information that can go into evaluating a child. Now, here's an example. I like this. In the good old days, this is an example of a report card for a kindergarten student back in 1957. And if you notice the date on it, it's June 25. So it's at the very end of the school year back then. Garfield School in New Jersey, Kenneth Gwynn, and Miss Mercaldo was the teacher. So you'll see that we have a column for days absent and days tardy, because we know this plays into account as far as a child's education goes. We've got health habits. And you'll notice that we've mainly got a check mark list here. So we used to just use these sort of as a checklist on each child to see where they're at. So their health habits are pretty good. They're all checked. Is obedient is the second line. And you'll notice at the first of the year in September, it says not always. And this is pretty normal for kindergarten students. Then by January, we have shows improvement. So he's getting used to how the classroom works and getting into how things are set up, how things need to be done, and maturing a little bit too as we go along. Next is industrious, very industrious, is courteous, very courteous, works well with others. Again, in September, we've got not always. In, in January, we have could be better. So, and then by April, doing better, and by June, that box is checked. So it's quite a journey for specifically early childhood education classrooms as far as how they're doing at the beginning of the year as compared to how they are at the end of the year. And please know this is where our patience comes in, because sometimes it will take that full year for them to achieve that goal. So I really like that example. Next, we have suggestions for methods for evaluating, assessing programs this time. So the first slide was assessing children, and this time we're looking at assessing programs. So I want you to think about your classroom as the program. We write down the basic information in the center just as before. We do observations ourselves, or people from the outside of our classroom do observations. We may do developmental assessments, maybe looking at is this DAPA curriculum? Is it appropriate for these kids? We might also look at the children's portfolios overall. How's each child doing? And what are they doing? And this is where a portfolio really comes in handy. And then we may also be using, again, checklist or rating skills. So somebody coming into your classroom might have a checklist of things they're wanting to see or to observe. And it's very important to know that we're not just the person doing the observations. Sometimes we have to be observed as well so that we can make improvements in our program. Next, I've got a few questions that I would like for you to address in your summary. So please be sure and add these questions as part of your summary of the lecture so that I know you've watched this. Both methods of assessing children and ECE programs require family feedback. It's so important. They will learn a lot about their children and the program and give valuable input. So my first question is, do any of your centers use ITERS, the Infant and Toddler Environments Rating Scale? Have you ever heard of ITERS? Yes or no? And if you have not, look it up online. Tell me a little bit about ITERS, because it's an amazing rating scale used for centers. And lastly, what is your opinion of standardized testing? And you notice that we have a discussion board that goes along with this as well this week. So tell me what you think, okay? So include this in your summary for your points. Next, the good teacher makes the poor student good and the good student superior. And that's by a great educator, Marva Collins. And I think this really helps emphasize what a classroom is truly like. It would be great if we had a classroom full of just Einsteins. They're all great and we just want to make them better and better. But we work with children on all different levels, and our goal by the end of the year is to see improvement and see growth. Lastly, any questions? If you have any questions, please call, email, text, or Facebook, and I'll be sure to get back with you. Have a great week too, everyone.